Welcome back to the 293 Co podcast. So today we're going to be talking about toxic communication in different language. I'm starting to notice a pattern around here. Just around life and how we communicate with each other, how we communicate amongst peers, relationship. Your thoughts?
Toxic communication is like one of those things I think that as a society we grew up on, and it was one of those things where it was just like, you automatically in defense mode depending on your situation and what you done been through.
Yeah.
And I think like, growing up in life, you don't really realize what's toxic because if you brought up in it, you think that's the norm. But it's not until once you get older and you venture out and you work on yourself, or you done been through so many different experiences where you had to face adversity and you want to like see something different, that's when you notice the difference between normal communication, toxicity with communication, and like how to deal with it.
Yeah. I feel like you said, it's how we're brought up, right? So we learn as an early childhood, like that toxic communication.
Yeah.
For example, I remember one time I was dropping my granddaughter off at daycare. Well, no, picking her up from daycare, right? And I remember walking into class and a little boy was crying.
Right.
And she goes, "What are you crying for?" Right? Off top, toxic, right? And then she was like, and he was like, I don't know. And she turns around and says, "Wipe your face." Wipe your face. And then when she said it, I said, "Oh my God." And I was like, she's learning from me. So I had to change how I communicate with the kids.
Right.
Because I used to say, "What are you crying for? Wipe your face."
Well, it's learned behavior.
Right.
And toxic communication starts within the family base.
Nah, you absolutely right.
Whoever's the head honcho in your family, right? Whether it's like the grandparents, the uncle, because everybody have a different head honcho in their family. That's like the base for everybody, right? Depending on the face value of how they was taught and whether or not they're willing to change who they are to make things better as far as communication and making it healthier, you learn from that base.
Nah, you're right.
And then what happens is whatever you learn inside the home, that's what you use out in the world for survivor mode, or thinking like, well, this is the only way I'm going to be able to get to where I need to be, or this is the only way I know how to protect myself so nobody can hurt me, And it sucks because, like, as we get older, right, you have to look back on things like, man, how many times have we said, man, if I could go back in the time, there's a lot of stuff I would change. I would do it differently. But look at how... But no, what I'm saying is because the only way we learn is through life lessons.
True.
We learn through failure. Not everybody learn through failure, but there's a percentage of us that learn through failure to want to be able to say, I don't want to go through that again. This is what I learned from it, and this is how I'm going to move forward. Now you have another percentage where they go through the failure. They can talk about what they learned from it, but then they get complacent and don't do nothing about it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So you have that up and down, and the ones that don't do anything about it, they stay into the toxic communication, still trying to survive because that's all they know, and they too scared to move forward, to learn something new, to want to grow.
Well, it's hard for them to learn something because it's almost like learning a new language, right?
Right.
So you have this toxic communication language going on here that you learn from a child, early age, childhood, until you're adult, and that's the form of your communication. So if someone says something in a way that is not toxic communication,
right,
that's a language like what kind of language is that? And we don't know what to do with it, right? And so that person, prime example, we were talking about this shit yesterday, right?
Right.
Prime example is you get in a relationship, right? And their form of toxic communication and your form of toxic communication at that time is like, oh, you don't love me because you won't do this.
Oh, that's very toxic.
Because manipulation is part of the toxic communication. It's part of the toxic atmosphere that you're in, right? If you don't do this, you don't love me. And then the question is, how much do you love me?
Right. But you know what? When you think about it too, that's a good thing that you brought up. Because when people act like that, you got to go back to the beginning of the relationship and be like, where did we go wrong? And where you went wrong was between the two of you, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody came in with falsified emotions, falsified of who they are because they may not know themselves. And so it became a pattern of, I'm going to show you a version that you want to see. But once you get comfortable enough, then at the end, you're going to have to really know, but this is who I really am.
But you're used to that version, though, because if you
Right.
think about it, you're brought up in that type of version, on an unhealed, toxic communication version. So when you respond, when that person say that, you respond heavily to that.
Right.
It can be, it'll send you to a flight like, man, that's not what I was trying to prove. Or it can be like, fuck you, bitch. Like,
yeah, then you become being in fight or flight mode.
Right.
Because then you're trying to prove yourself to that person, like you just said, that's not what I meant. That's not what I was trying to say. But if if you got one communication that's healthy and you got another one that's toxic, hey, that's like oil and water. It's not going to mix. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people get confused where they feel like, well, I'm about to work on myself, but I need to work so where I can feel like I'm perfect. Mm-hmm. Like I'm going to say the right things. I'm going to do the right stuff. And it's just like, hey, nobody's perfect.
Right.
Everybody on this earth have a toxic trait within them. I don't care who you are. You do, because that's part of being human. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, everybody in life have been through ups and downs or something, some major than others, but you carry a toxic trait that you have to either work on or you have worked on it and you try to stay on that road path of not reverting back to it. And you know what? And what I mean by that, it could be like, okay, for instance, say for instance that, you have friendship, relationship, or whatever it may be. And you may be a person who is very short-tempered, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say, for instance, you get it under control, but somebody may trigger you and bring that out of you. They may be like, oh, I never seen you act like this before, right? Well, it's a toxic trait, and you may be working hard of, anger management or just working on your anger or trying to justify hey, why do I get so angry? Where do it pinpoint from? Mm-hmm. But I mean, at times when you get like that, it is very toxic depending on who you're around and what it brings out of you or who's actually, looking up to you like, man, I never seen that come from that person. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes people feed off that and be like, well, this is just who I am. Why you want that label? That's also toxic. To be like, well, this just me. Is it really? Because I guarantee you 1,000%. If somebody grabbed a mirror and said, say that again, but look at yourself in the mirror, mm-hmm. they can't do it. I guarantee you they would look down at the mirror and not look exactly in the mirror.
Because they'll see a different version that they don't like.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We already see that version. But like I said, that's their form. They're comfortable when they say that.
Right.
You met me like this, so I was like this. I'm like this.
Right.
So you're saying I should accept your behavior. I should accept your gaslighting. I should accept your manipulation of form of communication because you were born like that. You wasn't born like that.
You weren't born like that.
But
they want you to accept the insecurities that they can't accept about themselves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the thing of it is just that, this is a tough pill for people to swallow, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can be the first one to say it was a hard pill for me to swallow because I was not comfortable enough to be able to know, it's okay to fail. It's okay not to be perfect. And sometimes with sports is one of those things where it's 50-50. As I got older, I seen the damage it done to my mental. And what I mean by that is because for a fact, being athletes and being high caliber of an athlete, right?
Right.
You're taught perfection. Mm-hmm. And it's also taught to carry that perfection in your life.
Well, it's also taught for the winner mentality.
Right. But I'm just saying, when you're playing individual sports and even when you're playing team sports,
Yeah.
if you're the star of that team, you're taught to carry on that team. You're taught everybody's going to be looking at you. You're taught you're held to a different standard. And so what happens once you put the ball down? All you remember is what you was taught when you was on that court or that field about perfection. And everybody have their eyes on you. But as you get older and you put that ball down, the only thing you have to do now is look at yourself in the mirror and say, what am I supposed to do next? But so only thing you can remember, and that has been hypnotizing your mind, is being perfect. So then you don't know how to communicate with another individual who ain't perfect and living life and enjoying life because you wasn't brought around that. And then when you're in a family where it's like everybody's looking up to you because they like, oh, you're the one that's going to make it, that's more pressure, even though you may have people in your family that's toxic as hell and don't give a shit about life and they do whatever and be like, oh, well. And then you have to sit back and wonder like, damn, why can't I have that mentality? Why can't I be like that? And so when you want to have that mentality and not realize like, hey, it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay not to be okay. You know what I'm saying? Then you have to sit there and be like, you know what? Now I have to take the time to relearn myself, to unlearn the bad habits that I was taught. So it's me versus me.
Well, a lot of that is toxic. Some of that is toxic positivity, right? Like, just get over it. It'll be better, you know. Like, especially in the basketball world, and as an athlete, we get toxic positivity all the time.
Yeah, it's a mind game.
It's a mind game.
Because at the end of the night, you got to produce. So they're going to say whatever you need to say. Hey, we're going to need them 30 points. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like this. You're the product. They make money off you. You go home with a small check. But at the end of the day, they're happy. But you're left with your emotions, how you feel. Don't know how to interact with people because you become a robot.
No, absolutely.
You become a robot. And so it's just like, that's how you have to look at it. Now, for people who are not athletes, you know what I'm saying? And they may not have anything going for themselves as far as like being put on a pedestal. And that's what they want because they see everybody else got this and that. I'm going to tell you right now, just because a person look happy don't mean they are happy. You never know what's going on behind closed doors in somebody else's home. But we as humans get caught up in that when we think that our life is not perfect.
Well, there's people who like have a high IQ as far as education accolades.
Right.
Like they're accomplishing all these accolades, and there too, you know, if I accomplish this thing, and here we go, learning behavior, like as a child, early childhood, if I produce, I get this gratification, and it makes me feel like I'm someone important. So that means as a child, you were felt like you wasn't important. So if you, in order for you to do that, you have to keep climbing these bars or getting these accolades, right? Whether it's sports or through whatever it is. And that's when you hear you know what? You're so smart.
Yep.
Man, you did such a good job. Oh, man. So what happens if I don't climb that bar or I don't achieve that? What toxic positivity? Because now I'm down on myself, right? I'm feeling down because not only did I not reach the goal that I needed to reach to, but, you know, what's the word? Excuse me. What's the word that I'm looking for? Anyway, trying to, when I'm thinking, well, you know what, I could have did better. Now that's me.
Right.
Telling myself, I could have did better. I could have did this. Like you said, it's perfectionist, right?
Yeah.
So I should have did this. I should have did that. But then when you sit back, who are you doing it all for?
Everybody else.
Everybody else, because you wanted, you're in this group, or this, your surrounding is surrounded by toxic positivity folks or just toxic communication around
Yeah.
you, right? And so if you don't reach those goals in your life or match it or something, then how are they going to look at me? They're going to see me as a failure because you know that, and the reason why you're thinking that is because it's been said.
Yeah.
You
You're
know,
right. You're right.
and when a person get mad, they'll say some outlandish shit. Like, you know what? Like some moms would say, I should have never had you.
Yep.
Or, you know, in a relationship, I should have never got with you. I knew this wasn't going to work.
Yep.
So they're already thinking all those things ahead.
Or, you know, another thing is too, it's just that like when you have that mentality, you know, mentally, it messes with you because you have some people that will sabotage your relationship. You know what I'm saying? And then turn around and want that relationship back. And they'll work twice as hard to get it back because you know why? They're looking at it like, well, you're not seeing what I'm doing and I'm trying to get it back. But they don't realize like you caused your own trauma because you didn't trust the process of where you was at. Because in the beginning, you wanted, in your mind, you telling yourself you have to be perfect. You want this person to gloat over you, but then you sabotage it. And then you want them to see like, hey, I'm not perfect, but now I want you back. Because you're going to try as harder when you're going to try harder when it's something that you want that you can't get.
Absolutely.
And that's just how everybody is, no matter what it is. When it comes to a job, relationship, you know, whatever in life. You know what I'm saying? But I think what comes down with toxic relationship is if you don't know how to put that on a hold, you're not going to get far. Because what happens is, however you respond in a toxic way, people leave that memory of you tattooed in their mind.
Right.
And like I said, just like the relationship thing, when you damage something from the forefront and people never really got the chance to know who you really are, then when you try to come back a second time to be like, you know what, I could have handled it different, sometimes it's too late.
Right. Absolutely.
Unless that person is willing to give you another chance. But that person have to be on the forefront of being able to see the difference or be healthy enough to be able to say, you know what, let's try this again.
Yeah, I feel like it's there's so many ways of communicating. You got healthy communication and non-healthy communication, right? Just like you have non healthy communication, which is, you know, touching and shit like that. And then you have the healthy part. The part that people, as humans, I can say as humans, we are so used to the unhealthy. We would take a person's lies before we take a person's truth. So if someone lied to us, we'll fixate in our minds of like, well, the reason why they did that is because of this, and this, and this. And then they start giving themselves all these like A, B, C, D fucking letters of why, you know, this person did this to me or communicated or lied to me. And we accept it. We accept it and we say, you know what? That's fine. It's because we're brought up as children. And we know when we first go to school, we start going to school and a little kid tell you something and they be like, no. And you be like, you a fucking liar.
Yeah.
Well, we'll say you're a liar. And then we get older and it's just like we start creating these things because guess what? It's done in our home. It's done in our community. It's like really a cycle. It keeps training our brain. This is what you should look for, like toxic communication. Now, when you start looking for healthy communication, you got to see a lot of those people who are toxic and know nothing but toxic communication, they start to pull away.
Yep. No, you absolutely right. You absolutely right. And it just, you know, I feel like we need to have more discussions about this with like friends and family, especially family, because family, you know what? Let's just get to the family part. Family is the most toxic.
Why you say
And the
that?
reason why I say that is because, just like I said before, whoever the head honcho in your family, they set the standards of what the family is based on. Like some families would be like, hey, you hold this family last name, you have to live up to these standards. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's already placed on you as a kid. If you got a family that don't know how to think outside the box or don't want to better themselves or move forward, they keep everybody complacent in that toxicity.
Right.
They make you, because family have a base where they're gonna be like, this is how we was brought up, this is what we believe. You don't get a choice to decide what you want to do. And if you venture away from that, family start to disown you.
Right.
So it starts, that's the core. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad because now in society, you have the new generation that is like venturing away from that. They want to be more, I was about to say want to be more exploring, but yeah, they want to explore more
Well.
of who they are. They want to see what's out there. They want to live carefree, but you got the older generations like, no, that's not what we believe in. They want to bring you back into the house, lock the door with the one doormat, and you got to ask permission to go outside, because if you don't stand by what the family believes, you can't be a part of the family anymore.
Well, that's how they perceive that love is.
Right.
Right. Love is judgmental, belittling, gaslighting, manipulating, controlling, possessive. And so we equate that when someone acts that way or tell us these things, they're like really loving us, right? And so I feel like a lot of people equate that toxic communication to they love me. Like prime example, and this is more intimate relationship,
Right.
right? When a woman feels like, or a man, vice versa, or whatever you identify as, starts saying, well, I need someone that's gonna like fight for me. That's gonna like, if I run away, come like it's like that push and pull
Right.
type of thing. I want to see you come like chase me. It's a chase game, right? That's not equate to love, but because you learn that in every frame and aspect of your life, whether it's a job can be toxic communication as hell.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's a way to train you to keep you codependent.
Right.
On that check, that little check that you get, knowing that when you go home, you don't feel not worthy. So how can you make yourself feel worthy? It happens in everyday life. We go out, we communicate, whether we're at the club, a restaurant, it can happen. Toxic communication. We belittle waitress sometimes.
Yeah, they get it really bad.
Yeah, if they're not getting our shit right, we belittle them in a way that we shouldn't. But we're trying to say, look, you've messed up on my order, so I'm gonna make you feel less than what you already feel.
Right, because you have this job, so you under me now.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? And that goes back to being in relationships and family too.
Right.
Where you have family members belittle each other.
No.
And then in relationships too. But I want to go back to the topic where you was talking about the love piece. And the thing of it is that love, like you said before, is toxic.
Yeah.
And I need people to hear me out when I say this, because of the simple fact, it's one of those things where if you sit two people down on the couch and say, why do you love me? 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you the basic. Well, I love you because, we do things together. You make me laugh and we have a lot of stuff in common. How many times you done heard that?
A lot. You know what? You probably need to ask him when you sit down, instead of saying, what do you love? Name things that you love about me. No, name things that you love about yourself. They probably couldn't do it.
And that's the key part about it. Because love is hard, but you know what? I'm going to say this again. It's like a metaphor. Love is not real. love is a situation where you love in the moment. Because 9 times out of 10, right, most people, when they say, I'm in love with you, it's because they either having a good moment or something bad done happen and they trying to get you back. Because how many times do people just go around and randomly say, I'm in love with you, when there's nothing like that going on? It's not a situation that you're in, or if you're in a doghouse, but just like a normal, I'm in love with you.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage of people that only does that. You know what I'm saying? But society make the word love look like it's this whole general thing that people based on, just like with Valentine's Day, right? It's falsified love, because most people are doing it because it's a holiday and feel like they got to do it. You should, whoever you with, you should love them you 365 days out the year. You don't need a holiday to bring whoever roses, flowers, love letters, or say, intimate stuff to each other to know they care. Just like parents with their kids. How many kids actually hear from their parents on a daily basis that they love them? They don't until they do something good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they
right.
don't until they do something bad and they need that encouragement because of the insecurities.
Toxic positivity.
You know what I'm saying? So the word love, it's one of those things that turns toxic because people only use it when they're in a situation in need. But like, think about it. People don't say it enough.
They don't say it nor show it. And that's when we say toxic communication, that means all forms, right? That
Right.
means language, that means verbal and nonverbal, right? Because you can, like you said, you can love a person, you can say, I love you.
Right.
And it not mean anything.
Yeah.
But I just manipulated you, gaslighted you all in one, right? Now, if you ask me what I love about myself and I can't give it to you, that means I don't know how to love you either.
Right.
Right?
But I mean, you think about it too. How many times do you hear on a daily basis now, love, the word love is just part of some people's vocabulary. Right. You can check up on somebody and be like, okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you. What you loving? You just talked to that person 10 minutes ago. They may call you back in 2 hours. Love you. It becomes a routine. But if you ask somebody, why are you in love with me? They can't tell you half of the time. Because that take time to get to really know somebody.
Well, I just feel like a lot of people are not there emotionally. Emotionally communication. It's hard for folks, right?
Right.
So if I gotta be like really open and honest and just emotional with you, just sitting there with nothing in front of me, no distraction, and I gotta sit there, that means, and I gotta tell you what I love about myself or tell you what I love about you, that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. Right. Because once again, we're not taught that.
We're not taught it. I mean, like, I grew up to where, like, the word love was not said a lot.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Because you seen it, like, I thought love was, somebody putting food on the table, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head. That was displaying love. But, I had to learn the difference between love, caring for someone, caring for yourself. But I didn't know how to do any of that because I didn't know how to love myself.
Right.
Because that was a foreign language. You know what I'm saying? So the thing of it is just that, like, now I got a better understanding what the word love means. But I know how to say it with caution, because you have to make sure that the person you saying it to understand the realness of it, and that it's just not a word.
Right.
Because love, I hope the viewers don't misinterpret how we're trying to say this, because, 1 minute we're saying like love isn't real or whatever. That's not what we're saying. The interpretation of how people use it sometimes make the word love not real.
It's so complicated when it doesn't have to be.
It is. But you know what? Sometimes the people that are the most hurt use it so much because they trying to convince themselves that they can love one day, but they don't realize the only person they need to be loving is themselves. Mm-hmm. And once you learn how to love yourself, it's hard because sometimes you have to retrain yourself and teach yourself how to take care of yourself in order to love. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like this. You can get in relationships over and over again and think that you loving an individual and you could tell them every day that you love them, but are you really loving them? Or are you taking care of them?
Or you just going through the motions.
Right. But that's part of taking care of them. Mm-hmm. You available. Mm-hmm. Because we always make sure we're available, but we have to be available in a positive way to where it means something. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where, that's sometimes where communication go wrong, like in friendships and family sometimes, because sometimes, people don't understand that if you making yourself available for somebody who toxic, they're not going to understand that you love them genuinely.
Well, they're not going to respect it either.
Well, they can't respect something they don't understand.
It's like you said, it's a different type of language.
Right.
I'm speaking like Portuguese. And
well,
you speaking like...
But you got to think about it too, though. It's like when you've been hurt so many times by people, mm-hmm. especially like the hardest hurt is like when it comes from family, honestly. But when you've been hurt like that and somebody come into your life and they genuinely really do love and care about you, in the back of your mind, what happens is the toxicity come up and be like, oh, that ain't real. They're going to hurt you just like everybody else. So, you got to ask yourself, am I going to be open and available to this person to receive what they're giving me? And that's tough too, because it's like a tug of war with yourself.
Yeah, a lot of like people are not open, like you said, because they've been hurt so many times.
Yeah,
and they carry that baggage.
Right.
So when they do meet that person that is, genuine, open, is honest, like they can't cope with that. So you're like, oh, they automatically put something in their head. I'm gonna give you a reason why this is not gonna work.
Oh yeah.
This is not gonna work, and then or they'll avoid. That's another form of toxic communication, avoiding those tough conversations and saying, oh, if we just leave it alone, then it's gonna get better. It's not. It's actually gonna get worse. It's just piling on top of the other laundry list and the baggage that you came with it.
Right.
For that person to deal with. Like, it's not going to get any better. But that is like another, like you said,
you end up being on a seesaw where it's just kind of like it's up and down, up and down. And that's why, like, some people fuel off of toxicity.
Yeah. Oh.
Just like, you can get people that be like, oh, yeah, we argue all the time. But you know what? We end up having sex and it's the best sex ever. And so, that's just how we get along. We fight and then we have sex and then it's all good. What the world?
The sex is great, but how did you deal with it? It's still there. That you haven't had any conversations, and every time now you're equating this. Every time it comes up, right, that comfortable conversation that you have to have, it turns into an argument. Nobody's listening.
Right.
Or people are giving each other the silent treatment or, whatever the case may be. And then it equates back to that, oh, I know if we do this, we're going to have sex. So then guess what? Now you keep bringing that up so you can start an argument. There you go. Toxic communication. You start an argument because you think that's the only way that you guys are going to have sex.
And
is it though?
But I mean, that's what some people built off of, because you know what? That gives them that security. Well, I know I hold it down in that area for this person. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So they thinking that like they building themselves up. But like you said, all you doing is just building up more toxicity.
Right.
And you guys may not even be compatible.
Right.
But at the same time, if you both are two broken individuals that don't want to fix what's really going on, and you figure out like, well, this works for us. That's just how we are. Mm-hmm. You back to square one. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of like, other things, just like with friendships. Everybody always started out no matter how many people you had in a group of friends, you always had that one friend that was toxic. They would always be the oddball out. They would either be the loudest one or the one that was just carefree, didn't really care. They really didn't have like the
It's the fun
morals.
friend.
You know what I'm saying? But sometimes the fun friend is the most broken
You're absolutely right.
because they got on all these masks. You know what I'm saying? Trying to make sure that everybody laugh and have a good time. But they the most brokest one. Or you have that friend that's willing to do something for everybody. They always trying to take care of everybody. Instead of just coming and being like, hey, you know what? I'm going to come and hang out with you guys today. Or I'm not going to come out and hang out with you guys
Right.
today. But you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody is ever taught, and it's, you know, it's a small percentage of us that have been taught this. But, you know, growing up, when you first encounter toxicity, you put up a wall. You start adding layers to your shield, right? Because you be like, I don't want to feel like this again. Or somebody made me look stupid. You know what I'm saying? But the thing of it is that how many of us can actually say that we was taught and brought up to be who we are? Because a lot of us are still trying to learn who we are. And we grown.
Yeah. Some of us are 40, some of us are 50 or older.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, you know, you expect to hear that from like the younger generation, like the teenagers and like people who haven't hit their peak at like 25. You know what I'm saying? But you expect like, okay, 25 or under, they don't know who they are. They still learning life. Well, not just them. You got people who are late bloomers in life that are trying to get it together that still don't know themselves.
Nah, you right.
Like, what do that really look like? You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it goes back to starting from the beginning of like literally, you know, getting a piece of paper, writing down all the things that you don't like about yourself, write down the stuff that you do like about yourself. And 9 times out of 10, there is more cons than pros.
Right. I mean, you learn how to communicate with yourself. You know,
And,
you
well-
just ain't got to communicate with everyone else. You also got to learn how to communicate with yourself.
No, you absolutely right. But then, you know, at the same time, the hardest part about it all is that you have to be honest with yourself and be like, you know what? This is where I lack the most. And start with one thing at a time. Because, like, I hear people say all the time, like, hey, I know that, you know, I got a lot of stuff going on. I know I need to work on myself and all this stuff. And you know what I do? I encourage them. Okay, because that's your journey. Can't nobody tell you how to do your journey or your process,
Sure
right?
can't.
All you can get from that is encouragement. But I let people know, like, hey, whenever you decide to start that, it's not going to be easy. I don't sugarcoat shit. You know what I'm saying? I let people know, hey, it's not easy. And don't rush it because sometimes it takes some people forever. But just start with one thing at a time. Because once you start seeing how far you start coming with like just the little baby steps, the only person that need to be proud of you the most is you.
No, you absolutely right.
Because if you're doing it for everybody else, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. And if you're doing it because you seen, well, Johnny over here look happy and he went to therapy, and so I'm going to go try this. No, don't do that because Johnny doing it. Do it because you want to do it.
You got to understand, Johnny's path is different than your path.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you just got to, like, you know, and black people, we are notorious. And black men, you guys are notorious for doing this. Like, I'm not going to cry, or I'm not going to say that I'm hurt. You know what I'm saying? I don't want nobody to see that I'm crying or hurt. Now, some of you, y'all do cry, and y'all let it go. But a lot of you just like, I ain't gonna let them see me like struggling. Like, shit, that's the toxic form of self-communication for you.
But they go back into our ancestor days, you know, especially in our community where, you know, they was taught like boys don't cry. You grow up, you know, I'm gonna teach you how to be a man. There's ways of teaching people how to be a man, but also showing their emotional side. But when you ain't taught that because of what you've been up against growing up,
It's slave
you try
mentality.
to, you know what I'm saying? You try to build your own program and then put everybody on that program. But everybody's built different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, even with our ancestors, you know, my grandma, I only seen her cry once, and that was when my grandfather passed away. But other than that, I've never seen my grandmother cry. And then what I was told is, like back in the days, as they were slaves, they couldn't cry, and if they cried, they would get whooped more.
Yeah.
So they picked up like these behaviors and toxic communication and toxic things where it grains into their kids and passed on down to their grandkids to their great. So it keeps going down generation until there's a, a stop sign saying stop, cautious, which road you gonna take.
Yeah. Because you know what? When you have to like deal with your emotions, and it's easy to be toxic. People don't understand that. It's very easy to be toxic because it's a way for people to leave you alone, and it's a way for avoidance. You know, so some people think toxic is heavy because they be like, well, nobody's bothering me. But then it comes to where, like, if you ever decide to do therapy and you have a good therapist that's going to challenge you, it's hella hard because of the simple fact you're like, I have to like process this stuff and learn it. Because if you ain't used to it, like you said, it is very foreign. It is one of those things where it's just like, I'm not comfortable enough. Like you trying to tear me down, then I got to build myself back up. But your mentality is like, I've been doing everything by myself all my life.
And you'll know when you meet someone without, like, maybe you won't, because when we're stuck in that toxic community, and you meet someone that's healthy and they tell you about yourself,
Yeah.
then it's just like, well, nah. You know what I'm saying? You don't get to tell me. And they become very angry. They become very irate. They don't listen. They're very, what's the word? Narrow-minded, right?
Right.
So very narrow-minded on their way of thinking, instead of saying, you know what? I didn't really think about that. I didn't know I was acting like that. Maybe I should. And I could tell you this now, and you know, we may or may not, but I'm gonna tell you this now. During this climate of time, the communication, there's a lot of toxic, and I mean a lot of toxic communication.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of toxic communities, and I can say that.
Yeah.
On both sides of the
Yeah.
of the arena, right? Where, you know, it's hard to communicate with that person.
Right.
It's hard to, and I can see that. I could say this for myself. Like I have had conversations and try to see, and I'm not afraid of uncomfortable conversations. I want to see. Shit, I'm curious.
Right.
You know, I'm a curious fucking bee. So when I'm asking you these questions, and you get irate and aggressive, you already done told me everything that I needed to know about yourself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove myself and no longer have this conversation, because I see that we're not going to be able to have that conversation.
Right.
It's going to be, you want me to stay in that unhealthy, toxic communication conversation that I'm having with you, because you need to feel more alive. You need to feel heard. You need to feel seen. But where you going about it, it's all wrong.
Right.
So why should I stay in that situation and allow myself to be in that? No.
No, you absolutely right. You absolutely right. And I hope what people get from this today is just like, you know, we are brought around toxicity every single day, no matter where you at, you know, home, workplace, you know, you could be out at a sporting event or whatever, or going shopping. You know, you're going to be in some type of form of toxicity communication. But, you know, the first thing and the only thing that you can really do, especially nowadays, is just like think about what you say, how you respond, and going about your day, and then process it either within the moment or process it later. And you know what I'm saying? Learn from it. But right now, I can honestly say that like a lot of stuff is changing, and you know, for your own mental health and just sanity of everything, you have to find a way to adapt that's healthy for
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, what I'm learning is, I have to and not avoid it so it won't upset me or, mess with my mental health. It's already going to mess with your mental health.
I think that's one of the challenges that I'm having right now is because like it's easy for me to isolate. Okay. And like more and more I've started to be around more and more people, and that part is fine because like, I can disassociate, or if I'm with friends, it's a little bit easier, right? So it's kind of like, what, it takes your mind off of everything, and just trying to wonder like, what this person over here doing, what that person over there doing, for say. But the thing that bothers me the most, I think for me, and with toxic communication, where I have to be careful at, is because I constantly on a daily basis get misidentified.
Oh, yeah.
So the
Okay.
thing of it is that I have to be careful how I respond to those aspects when I'm outside of my comfort zone, so that it don't turn toxic. And I know it's more than me that go through that. And but at the same time, it's like, I go through it on a daily basis. And at the same time, I'm just being me. My clothes shouldn't have to identify who I am as a person.
Right.
But people don't take the time to look or even see, like, hey, that's a female, because they're so eager to respond or see what's going on. And then, like, we both looking at each other. Once I start talking, they looking like, oh. And so how I respond to people now is like, hey, you know what? Don't even worry about it. You ain't the first person who ever misjudged me.
Nah,
And I keep it pushing.
you absolutely right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's just like having to do that all the time. It's like, you know what? I have to be careful, because it's just like I have to make sure that don't come a trigger. You know what I'm saying? Because some people will get like, oh, I feel so sorry for you. What you feeling sorry for? I'm not feeling sorry. I didn't make the mistake. Because I'm aware when I get around people. You know what I'm saying? I make sure I observe the situation, who I'm around, what we talking about, what we doing. You know what? But people nowadays don't take the time to assess the adjustment of who they're around. Now we living in a world where it's just automatically everybody goes off of assumption.
Well, I think a lot of people were in an era where, and I can't say we never been here before because we have.
Yeah.
So it's just the communication line is different now.
Yeah.
People are not avoiding those conversations, and I'm talking about the younger generation. They're like, fuck that. This is what I'm feeling. This is where it's at. And I think people are, what I've learned lately is people are unhappy with themselves. They're really, really unhappy with themselves, and it's better for them to be in a situation where that situation don't treat them good, right?
Right.
Don't talk to them good. The communication is horrible. There's a lot of controlling possessiveness. There's a lot of, and when they get that, they become alive. Like this is like we just finished talking about that. This is what I know. This is the language. Prime example. If you're talking in Spanish and somebody says, I need you to speak English, it's because they're uncomfortable. It has nothing to do with you. And the same thing is going on now. The communication language is different. They understand only one thing, and that's lies, gaslighting, criticism, belittling, blaming, guilt tripping. What else? Controlling, possessiveness, avoiding responsibility. That speaks their language.
And another thing to put in that with speaking their language is if they blame themselves first before you can
Yeah.
blame them, then it's supposed to seem like they're holding themselves accountable, but they're not, because they want you to be like, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. No, we need to worry about it, because when are you going to change?
Right.
For you, not for me, but for you.
Right. And that just, to me, I was watching this show, prime example. I was watching this show on Netflix, and it's dealing with the Gabby,
Yeah.
the Gabby.
The girl that went missing, but
Yeah, the
boyfriend
girl.
killed her.
Yeah, the girl that went missing. And I was watching. They were showing texts of their communication,
Right.
and I was watching that. Now, if I wasn't working on myself, or my own inner self, I would have said, "Okay, well, shit, she is making him feel horrible," because the texts were like really manipulating, gaslighting. It was so bad. And looking at that text, the first text I saw, and I was just like, this is horrible communication. This has nothing to do with love or respect. It has everything to do with, what can you feel in my cup?
Right.
Why am I feeling so anxious? You should be here, like, making me feel good, like beefing up my ego and all this. And the communication line, and then on her end, it was like, yeah, I'm sorry. She gave in, right? Because he did all these things. Yeah, I'm sorry. I love you so much. I don't know. No, I never want you to feel that way. No, I love you. And it was just like, this is so. And they're young. They were very young.
They was very young.
A very young couple. And it's just like, wow. Like, and this just don't happen overnight.
No. That was built up over time.
It was built over time. And you see how these young adults who supposed to be in love, who supposed to be respecting each other and caring for each other, and look how they communicate.
Right.
But not once did she say, you know what, I don't like this.
Right.
But
I mean, when you think about it too, and you talk about the toxic communication of it, right? Is one word that you said that we definitely have to talk about.
What is that?
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, man.
Like,
that's
the thing of that is just that, when a person is unhinged and unhealed, we say I'm sorry a lot. And when I say we, I'm a part of that community.
Yeah,
I used to
I've
say
done it.
I'm sorry
Yeah, I've
all the
done it.
time for stuff that I don't even know why I'm saying I'm sorry for, but it became a part of my vocabulary because,
It's very
you don't
passive.
want nobody to feel bad, and you get overwhelmed and you take on somebody else's stresses or whatever, and you be like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And it was one day when I was in therapy, and Lindsay said, what are you sorry about? And I couldn't answer it because I got so used to saying I'm sorry, because I would be so fidgety and like thinking like, oh, poor, them, and like their issue became mine. And it's just like, if you notice when a person say I'm sorry a lot, sometimes you have to intercept and be like, you know what are you sorry for, and why are you saying that you're sorry? I'm not saying that you can't say that you're sorry, tell somebody that they're sorry, but you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes some people say it so much that the math ain't math, and it don't even make sense why you saying you sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because when you learn that a person say one word more than once over and over again, they're uncomfortable. They don't know nothing else to say because they don't know how to respond. And that's like the part of it, though. So toxic communication is one of those things that, it's learned behavior.
It is. And it's, it also, we get in situations and jobs too,
Right.
Like I said, it doesn't matter the situation. We get in situations and we have that toxic relationship with that situation.
Right.
And so with that toxic relationship comes toxic communication with that relationship. So you're figuring out, you may have a boss that is like narcissistic,
Right.
narcissistic, and you may, try to do your best. So you keep working and working and trying to do your best, and it's not good enough.
Yeah, because somebody, especially somebody who is narcissist,
Mm-hmm.
they're non-pleasing people.
Right.
Period.
And even if you're like, oh, you're down, and they're like, you're like, what do they say? Stop worrying about it. It's
Yep.
not a big deal. So pretty
Or
much
get over it.
Get over it. So pretty much you just got to diminish your feelings and how you feel. Or somebody like you're talking to a friend. Well, at least you got a good job, so you
Yep.
should be happy about it.
Yep.
So what are you saying? I can't have a bad day. You can have bad days. Just realize that.
You know what? You put like that is so like a good example, because I think what happens is because like that's why some people stop communicating with people, is because sometimes people say the wrong stuff at the wrong time. Like what happened to encouraging each other, motivating each other in a way that comes off to, okay, before I say anything to this individual, I need to respond the way I want to be responded to. And sometimes I think people forget that. Respond to people how you want to be responded to. Not how like you just going to be tossing about it just to get your point across. If you want to get your point across, but get it away in a manner to where they're going to listen to you, you have to think before you speak.
Yep.
And sometimes we don't do that as individuals. And then what happens is later down the road, we have to learn that life lessons where we sit back and we say, you know what? I thought about it. I processed it, and I could have handled that different. Mm-hmm. And you know what? We have said that to ourselves multiple times in different situations. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like now it's just about learning from that, because nobody's ever going to be perfect about that. Like, I need everybody to really listen to that part. Nobody is perfect. You can try to be perfect, but you're never going to be perfect. You can be good at something. You can be great at something, but perfect doesn't exist.
Yeah, just hard work works with it.
Just like happiness. Happiness is an individual moment, but it doesn't exist. And what I mean by that, it doesn't last forever. You're going to have your up and down.
Absolutely. You're going to
know what I'm saying?
There's going to be, where there's happiness, there's pain.
Right.
And I say that, and I don't say that in a negative way, because I know you guys are used to this negative talk. But it is. And like Bonnie said, you're going to have happy moments, and then you're going to have days where it's not a happy moment. And that is okay. And that's where you really have to have, start really working on that toxic self-communication with yourself. Because we always have a tendency to be like, I shouldn't even be sad. Or, I don't even know why I'm mad. Yeah, you do. If it upsets you, yeah, if it upsets you, you can be mad in that moment. But see, there's a difference. There's a feeling that comes up with mad, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a reaction that follows with mad.
Right.
Stop the reaction. But you can sit with yourself, and that's why I said self-communication, and say, you know what? I am upset about that. Like, this made me feel this way. And just really go back and forth, because you are the main person in your story.
You are absolutely right.
You are the main person in your story. It's your dialogue. It's your narrative. So regardless how many people you have around you, it's your story. I don't care how much money that person have.
Right.
I don't care what status they have. They're always going to be a narrative. Everybody has their own narrative. and it's your own story. Stop using or stop comparing yourself
To other
and
people.
other people so you can do your toxic self communication. That's not how it works. You're right. You're not going to be happy all the time. You're not going to be sad all the time. But as long as you know how to emotionally regulate that and have that that positive communication and self-love within yourself,
Yeah.
like you can pretty much get by with stuff. You know what I mean? And I say that in a way that, like, just because you're doing your self communication and trying to make it positive, you're gonna, like, what I'm saying is allow yourself to feel all those emotions. If you're sad and you want to cry, cry. If you're a male and you feel that, cry.
You know what also helps, though? Them days that you crying, write them down. Mark it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Because then, you know what? You working on something. I mean, like, sometimes you have to be grown enough and adult enough to put yourself in timeout. You have to know how to put yourself in timeout. Like, if you know you woke up this morning and you're going to be like, you know what? I ain't got no act right today. I'm moody. I don't want to be around people. Put yourself in timeout.
And it's
but
okay.
when you in timeout, process what you're going through.
Yep.
And then if you need to talk to somebody, talk to that individual that's going to listen, but also give you some encouragement for you to want to be like, you know what? Give you stuff to think about. Mm-hmm. Not tell you shit that you want to hear. They may need to tell you some stuff that you need to hear, but make sure it's somebody that you look up to. You know what I'm saying? Not just anybody. Don't get on the phone with anybody. You know what I'm saying? But, like, that's the thing. Sometimes you have to put yourself in timeout.
You do.
I put myself in timeout at times.
I do.
You know what I'm saying? Then, you know, I'll call you in favor and be like, hey, I'm going to tell you, look, I ain't even got no air right today. I can be mad about something. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I done process it, but I'm going to need somebody else to hear what I'm processing and then tell me where I went wrong at. You know what I'm saying? Because you need that in life. You need people that's going to tell you like, hey, dog, listen, nah, you was wrong. You could have handled that a different way. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be able to process it. But if you ain't healed enough, you're not going to hear it. You only going to taste bits and pieces of it and then just still be more mad. You got to be willing to accept it and then grow from it. You know, but I know, for instance, like when I can't tolerate people, I put myself in timeout.
And you got to look at the people you surround yourself with, too.
Right.
You know, not everybody has your best interests at heart. My grandmother used to say that. When you're young, you don't believe that because you're so stuck in the toxic communication and that toxic positivity, right? But not everybody have your own best interests at heart. You have your best interests at heart. So, like Bonnie said, put yourself in timeout. And when you come out of timeout, find that person that you can really, like, have conversations. That person who's going to be honest with you. And it's not honest, oh, you being too damn honest. No, they're going to be honest. They're going to keep it real with you, 100. Because these day and age, we need 100s.
We sure do.
I mean, 100 people are like fine wine. Really, they are.
Yep. Because, I mean, you think about it, when we was younger, you know, we used to think like we had to have so many friends to be popular. You know, your parents used to tell you everybody ain't your friend. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, you would hear that, but, you know, you let it go through one ear and not the other. But it's just like that saying is really true, because it's just like when you get older, you start capitalizing on like, hey, my group of friends is really small compared to what I used to have. But then you start seeing the difference in the growth. You know, and it just kind of like, it's one of those things, like, it's so easy, like we said before, to come off very toxic to protect our feelings and our needs and our wants. But toxic is not always good. And I know, especially like, you know, in the mental world, you know, if you have like mental disabilities or, you know, personality disorders or anything in that type of nature, it's really hard on you at times because people think it's easy to control. But all it takes is a small trigger and you go off, then everybody looking at you sideways. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be very careful, and sometimes you have to be very selective on what you do, how you do it. But you have to really know yourself to be like, you know what? I can't put myself in this situation right now because I'm not prepared, and I don't have the tools in my toolbox right now to be out here and trying to be in survivor mode. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because like for the longest, before. People used to be like, I used to be able to go out there and I used to put on that mask and it would hold up strong. Nobody never knew I had anything going on. But once you start working on yourself, those masks no longer fit. So now they very fragile. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You still got them, but they thin now. They're not as thick. So you have to know your limitation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And like that's the hardest part as you get older is realizing like, hey, what I used to do, I can no longer do. I have to start showing people the real me. But at the same time, I'm speaking from experience, is you have to be careful who you show yourself to, because if people don't appreciate who you are becoming and it's your real authentic self, you don't need them in your life.
No, you don't.
You don't need them in your life, because if you gravitate to let them in, you're going to stay in that cycle and you're never going to be able to get farther because you got an individual holding you back. And never let nobody tear down what you have started to build.
Absolutely. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for listening. I know we've been gone for a minute. I assure you, we're back. I'm still trying to work out this YouTube thing. So, that being said, look, have self-communication with yourself.
Yes.
Learn how you talk to yourself. If it's toxic, or do you talk to yourself in a way where it's positive? Now, you want to surround yourself by validating emotions, encouraging expressions, balancing positivity with realism. And what I mean by that, just be like, I know this is hard, but I'm here to support you.
Right.
And that's what I mean by that. And emphasizing on growth and not suppression. Man, I'm messing that word up.
You sure is, but you know what?
Suppression.
I'm gonna let you have
there
the
you
moment
go.
right now.
I got tongue tied. That being said, I want to wish everybody a nice evening. Enjoy.